Schools across California are increasingly limiting student cell phone use during the school day, with a new law taking effect next summer requiring districts to enact smartphone restrictions. New findings by UCLA researchers suggest completely banning phones on school grounds could actually do more harm than good. We welcome the lead author of the study, Kathy Doe, to our new newscast. Thanks for being with us, Kathy.
Yes, thank you for having me.
Of course. So cell phones have been linked to increased bullying, shorter attention span, distraction from classwork. Why do you say schools shouldn't outright ban them?
Yeah, families and teachers are raising those real concerns about how cell phones are shaping young people's learning and mental health. As school districts and state policymakers take steps to restrict cell phone use in schools, what I and my co-authors, Drs. Jenny Grammer and Joseph Bishop of UCLA, are trying to do in this research report is, one, give people access to the latest research that shows them how cell phones are impacting kids' learning and well-being, and two, provide schools with the tools they need to understand the challenges with cell phone use and design more equitable, age-appropriate policies that support learning for all students. And so, we want to make sure that as education leaders are making these decisions, they're paying attention to the needs of all students. And so the key recommendation we're making is that there's no one-size-fits-all answer. And that's because for many students, especially those with learning or health needs, phones are essential. And so schools need to be building equitable, age-appropriate policies to ensure that all students can thrive.
It's really hard to find a one-size-fits-all answer to an issue that is so varied. Just when it comes to enforcement in the classroom, I've heard from some parents say, oh, my child had their cell phone taken away. I hear from other parents say, oh, the teacher just kind of, wags a finger and kind of makes the kid put it back in the backpack. So even that, when you look at who might likely get the more, the stricter punishment, if you will, I think people might be concerned to see about how that would play out.
Totally. Yeah, that's one of the issues we want to raise attention to with these policies. We want to make sure that they're designed or refined to limit, to still enable students to access the learning and health tools they need. So school leaders need to build in clear exceptions for students with disabilities who rely on assistive tech for learning. But then, as you're saying, consistency also matters. So policies need to be applied fairly to reduce possible disparities in the implementation or impact, especially for students from historically marginalized groups.
We do a lot of reporting on the ills of cell phones and specifically social media. Sometimes I need to remind myself, the cell phone is how my son connects with his cycling friends, so they all know to meet up at Joaquin Miller Park this afternoon. I mean, it really can help build community and friendship.
Yeah, I think that's so important. Like, we need to remember that cell phones affect students and, adults differently. They support connection, communication, and learning, but there's also those risks. And so, it's important to, we think that the goal shouldn't just be restriction. It's also helping young people and adults build balanced digital habits, and schools, families, and communities all need to work together so that, we can all reinforce that healthy balance. So screen time adds to our lives and not take away from healthy behaviors that are important for us, like sleep or time with others.
And finally, Kathy, how do you talk to parents who say, I don't want to be a police officer in my own home? Because so many of us, we're counting the minutes, we're setting the downtime, we're saying you should be setting the table. It's just another thing to fight about sometimes.
Yeah, I think, we're all kind of learning how to have that balance, the tech habits, it's not just a young people problem, it's a human problem. So I think, being mindful of your use and having those discussions with your kids are going to be really important to show, I'm struggling, or these are the ways that I'm setting boundaries on my phone so that, I'm still living, some great, doing in-person things that are really beneficial for me. And so I think having that honest conversation about how everyone, you and your kids alike, can balance your time on and off the phone is going to be really important.
I've taken to telling them there is a whole army of people working to keep you on that phone, right? Mm-hmm. Turning it off is hard. It's designed to be hard. And I think they maybe appreciate that little bit of an insight that, these apps want you to stay on.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's happening, at a time when young people's self-regulation skills and brains are still developing. And so I think, that's why it's really important to be teaching healthy habits, pairing those restriction policies with digital citizenship or readiness education, so we can be more mindful of our own use with our phone, but also, lead by example by modeling those healthy phone habits early on and discussing why they matter so that we can set set young people up for success in the long term.
All right. Well, Kathy Doe, I wish we had an hour, but our time is ending. I appreciate your time and your expertise on this issue.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you.